Irrelevant and expendable. Those are the two words I chose to describe how my husband's infidelity made me feel. 4 years, 2 months, and 12 days. That's the amount of time between my first discovery day in 2020 and the moment that I told my husband I wanted to stay married to him while standing on the beach in late 2024. Yes, that is over 4 years later. And for those of you that must be thinking that I'm either insane, cruel, or the most indecisive woman on the planet, I can assure you, I am none of those things. I was traumatized, just like you might be right now. For the betrayed spouses, I'm going to share the evolution of what I needed in order to heal from the trauma. For the wayward spouses, I'm going to relay some semi-pro tips for you to consider. In the early days of recovery, I didn't believe that my marriage could be saved. In fact, I was 99% certain I was going to file for divorce. The only reason I didn't right away was because my twins were about to start their college application process, and I wasn't willing to make any sudden moves that might derail their success. I agreed to take EMS online and harboring hope as a way to buy time, but to be clear, I had zero hope. At Affair Recovery, we tell people that healing from infidelity can take anywhere from 12 to 36 months. My husband could deliver one heck of a TED Talk on how to easily stretch that timeline into 51 months. I endured 3 more D-days before I found myself sorting through the rubble, barely standing, shell-shocked, in the basement of rock bottom. Each discovery day was worse than the last. By the 4th and final, I was certain there was no coming back from this. I was convinced that I was destined for divorce, and if I survived it all, I would always walk with an emotional limp. I didn't have a checklist of what I would need in order to stay, because staying was nowhere on the table. It was during EMS Online that I first started to see the little glimmers of possibility, but they never lasted long. I changed my mind about staying constantly, every day, 20 times a day, for over a year. But little by little, that volatility began to lessen. There were just so many internal battles to conquer. Right out of the gate, I was irate that my husband even wanted to stay married. I recall saying to him, "It is so you to have the audacity to think that you are entitled to a vote after what you pulled. The only thing you should be saying is that you'll agree to get out. I can have the house, the kids, the cat, and half your paycheck for the rest of your life." Yes, I was that angry. For a long time, I believed that seeking vengeance was the only thing that was going to ease the excruciating pain I was feeling. I wanted justice. I was furious that my husband wasn't fired from his job. Early recovery Candace wanted him to feel the shame of being let go for cause. I wanted him to tell our friends and family who he really was and expose the double life that he had been living. I wanted the affair partner's husband to know every horrid detail about the infidelity. I wanted their marriage to go up in flames. While I was at it, I wanted her to lose her job too. I wanted my husband to apologize to the affair partner's husband. I wanted him to show remorse not only to me, but to everyone that he deceived and for the lives that he destroyed. My hurt manifested as rage. I wanted to scorch the earth and take names. Curious how it all played out? I got none of it. It wasn't that my husband refused. It was that our therapist, a specialist in infidelity recovery, advised against the vast majority of my vengeance wish list. I trusted and respected their guidance, but I resented the hell out of it. I felt like my husband was getting off way too easy. Self-imposed house arrest just didn't seem like proper retribution for destroying families. And then there was the shame. But Candace, you're the betrayed spouse. Why did you feel shame? We could and should do an entire vlog on shame alone. I felt trapped between 2 conflicting narratives. If I left, I felt that I'd be judged for walking away from a husband who is now committed to doing whatever it took. If I stayed, I saw myself as weak, pathetic, and worst of all, a terrible role model to my daughters. What self-respecting person would tolerate that kind of treatment? For those of you that are trying to make sense of this chaotic timeline, those multiple D-days set us back significantly. Instead of being 10 months into recovery, We were at negative square 10 months. I hated him. I hated my life, and I hated myself. I kept waiting for my husband to throw in the towel. I'd even test him every once in a while by saying things like, "This house has 5 exit doors. Take your pick." He insisted every time that this was the only place he wanted to be. Those damn glimmers of hope kept resurfacing, no matter how hard I tried to drown them. So what created those glimmers? Me, watching his actions, not his words. His words were worthless for quite some time. He understood that I needed to see genuine long-term transformation, consistent choices and behaviors over time. This created a sense of safety and stability. I needed him to prove that he could be safe both for himself and for us. It had to be long enough that it felt authentic, not forced or desperate. Most importantly, I needed to see that he was changing for himself, not just to keep me. So what did that look like? He remained committed to individual and couples therapy with an infidelity expert. Bonus points get awarded because for the last 4 years, he was the one scheduling every single appointment, not me. He sought expert advice on how to disclose the truth to our then teenage daughters in an age-appropriate way. He developed a structured travel plan to create safety around all of his business trips, but also in all of his daily interactions with female coworkers. Those same boundaries extend to female friends and strangers. He became mindful of behaviors that he knew were triggering to me, not because they were infidelity specific, but because they were reminders to me of that era. Things like aggressively weaving in and out of traffic, being glued to his cell phone, and any outbursts of impatience or rudeness towards others. Beyond that, he made tangible physical changes. Before recovery, we rarely watched TV together at night. There was no effort to compromise on a show or even attempt to sit in the same room. On the rare occasion that we would watch something together as a family, he'd be on one sofa, fixated on his cell phone, while my daughters and I sat together on the other. Post D-Day, everything shifted. He made a point to find shows that we both enjoyed, sitting next to me, phone out of sight, fully present. He was the one that suggested that we start going to bed at the same time. This was something that had just never been a priority before. It was a small change, but a meaningful one. A quiet, consistent reminder that he was choosing us every night. One of my favorite things he did without any prompting from me was he contacted his first Hope for Healing group leader. He apologized to him for the fraudulent recovery efforts he made during that first 17-week course. Here's a quick side story to tell you just how awesome our group leaders are. His group leader could have totally said, "Thanks, man, wish you well," and that would have been understandable. Instead, he offered to stay in contact with my husband. They've been friends and accountability partners for the past 3 years. Speaking of group leaders, my husband became a leader in training for affair recovery groups and has since been leading groups on his own for the past 2 years. This allows him to stay connected to the coursework as well as give back to our affair recovery community. It spoke volumes to me that he never asked me to protect his image or silence my pain. He let me own my story, and he wasn't horrified when I wanted to turn it into a career. He was my biggest supporter when I was interviewing at Affair Recovery. He didn't freak out when I started vlogging about our baggage-saggage drama and trauma, and he was literally standing 10 feet away as I recounted my comeback after betrayal and recorded my survivor speech for Hope Rising 2024. In recovery, experts say to measure progress month over month, or better yet, season over season. The volatility is just too great to measure in any shorter increments. To sum that up in just one word, retrospect. So what progress was I able to look back and see, but could not have been foretold? Here's an example. Our twin daughters will graduate from college this June. Early in recovery, we needed to make hotel reservations near their school for graduation weekend. Even though we had settled into a comfortable daily routine, the thought of deciding if my husband and I were going to need to reserve 1 hotel room or 2 gave my anxiety. Just a few months ago, the hotel called to confirm our reservation for just 1 room. I confirmed without any hesitation. Days later, it hit me. I no longer felt afraid to picture us together in the future. I also noticed that I had let expert guidance that I'd received 4 years earlier finally sink in and assuage my fear that I was being a poor role model to my daughters if I stayed married. My therapist had reassured me, probably no less than 10 times, that what we were modeling was resilience, strength, and emotional growth. She emphasized that children who witness their parents navigating adversity with honesty and effort will actually grow into stronger, more resilient adults than those who never witnessed their parents struggling at all. That same therapist early into recovery would ask me how various aspects of the betrayal made me feel. I always came back to the same 2 words: irrelevant and expendable. If you had told me back in 2020 that 4 years later, I would describe myself as loved and empowered, I would have totally thought you were talking about the wrong Candace. Retrospect allowed me to admit to myself that I apparently didn't need vengeance in order to heal. I noticed how good it feels to allow my husband to show up as this new person that he has worked so hard to become. I regained my ability to look into the future without fear or anxiety. Last October was when I knew. I realized it wasn't about deciding whether or not to stay in my old marriage. It was about choosing to build something entirely new, together. Not because the past had been erased, but because the future had been earned. Not because I forgot who we were, but because I was finally able to see who we had become.